Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are climbing one of the absolute Mount Everests of philosophy, Hegel's Phenomenology of Spirit. Now, I know it has this legendary reputation for being incredibly dense, maybe even impossible to read. But what if I told you it's actually one of the greatest adventure stories ever written?
Right from the start, Hegel hits us with this powerful idea. The real truth of things isn't just one little piece of the puzzle. Nope, it's the entire puzzle, all put together. And this book, The Phenomenology, well, it's the epic saga of how our own consciousness journeys from seeing just one tiny piece to finally grasping that whole magnificent picture.
So let's just forget about this being some dry academic text. Instead, think of it as a classic hero's journey. And who's our hero? Our protagonist is consciousness itself. It starts out totally ignorant and sets off on this grand, sweeping quest for ultimate truth. So come on, let's join our hero on the very first step of its adventure.
You know how every great hero's journey starts with a problem, right? A call to adventure? Well, for consciousness, that call is this deep, frustrating quest to close the gap between what it thinks it knows and what it can know with 100% absolute certainty.
So let's meet our hero. Consciousness. Right now, it's completely naive, kind of like a newborn opening its eyes for the first time. Its first mission seems simple enough, to be absolutely, unshakably certain about the things that are right there in front of it.
So its first big test is what Hegel calls sense certainty. Consciousness just points at something and says, this thing right here, right now, that is real. But, here's the trap. The very second you say now, that now is already in the past. It's gone. The word now doesn't actually capture that specific instant. It's a universal term that could mean any moment. And the same thing goes for here. The unique thing you're pointing at just vanishes the moment you try to pin it down with these general words. And just like that, our hero's first trial ends in failure.
Okay, so consciousness totally failed its first trial. How does our hero get back up and level up? Well, it happens through this really powerful engine of progress that's going to drive the entire story forward. And this is Hegel's famous dialectic. It's not just some fancy way to argue. For Hegel, it's the actual rhythm of reality. So consciousness forms a belief. Let's call that the thesis. Then experience comes along and shows how that belief is flawed. That's the antithesis. And then out of that crash, a new, better, more complex understanding is born, the synthesis. So here's the key takeaway. Every single failure, every contradiction, it's not a dead end. It's the very fuel that pushes our hero to a higher, more sophisticated stage of understanding. Now, get this. This whole dialectical journey, it isn't just happening inside one person's head. It's the journey of all of humanity across all of history. Hegel calls this huge unfolding process spirit, or in German, Geist. So spirit is both our hero, consciousness, and the entire world of the story it's traveling through. Mind-bending, right?
So having failed to find certainty by just pointing at stuff, consciousness gets a little more sophisticated. Now it's going to try to understand the world by looking for hidden structures and the rules that lie underneath everything. First, it tries perception, breaking things down into objects and their different properties. But that just gets it all tangled up. So it levels up again to what Hegel calls the understanding and starts inventing all these theories about invisible forces and universal laws to explain what we see. But its logic gets so twisted that just to make its theories work, it has to imagine this bizarre, inverted world where everything is secretly its opposite, where what we think is sweet is in itself sour. It's a pretty clear sign that this whole approach has hit a dead end. And right here, we get a huge plot twist. After building all of these incredibly complex theories about the external world, consciousness has this stunning realization. In trying to map out the laws of the universe, it was actually just mapping the laws of its own mind. The whole object of its quest wasn't out there, it was in here the entire time. This realization, as you can imagine, is a massive turning point in our hero's journey. The quest for certainty about things is officially over. And now, a much more dramatic quest begins. The quest for recognition from other conscious beings. The insight here is just profound. To be a self, to really, truly exist as a self, it's not enough to just be aware of yourself in a vacuum. You need another self-consciousness to look at you and acknowledge that you exist. Your identity is literally forged in the eyes of another person. But this creates a brand new, and honestly, a pretty dangerous conflict. I mean, if I need your recognition to feel real and you need mine, what happens?
Well, a primal, life-and-death struggle breaks out, where each consciousness tries to force the other one to recognize it, to assert its own freedom and its own dominance.
And this sets up Hegel's most famous chapter, the Dialectic of the Lord and the Bondsman. The one who wins the fight, the Lord. He gets that recognition he wanted, but it's from someone he sees as less than him, a bondsman, so it feels totally empty and unsatisfying. Meanwhile, the loser, the bondsman, is forced to work on the world, to shape nature with his hands. And in that work, in changing the world, he starts to see his own ideas made real. He sees himself reflected in the objects he creates, and through that process, he achieves a genuine independent self-consciousness. It's an amazing paradox. The loser ends up winning the true prize.
Now, our hero's journey is far from over. He goes through many more trials, exploring freedom through things like the cool, detached logic of Stoicism, the deep doubt of skepticism, and the bold confidence of reason. But that fundamental lesson learned by the bondsman, that true selfhood is found through creative work in the world, that's what sets the stage for the final destination of this whole quest.
So, after this absolutely epic adventure, filled with failure after failure, contradiction, and transformation, where does our hero, consciousness, finally end up? What is the ultimate goal of this entire cosmic journey?
The journey finds its end at a stage Hegel calls absolute knowing. This is the grand finale. This is the moment where that wall between the knowing mind and the known world just completely dissolves. Our hero finally realizes that the external world isn't some strange, alien thing it needs to figure out. It's a mirror. So the ultimate prize isn't power over the world. Not at all. It's this profound realization that the entire world, all of history, all of art, religion, science, nature itself, is the autobiography of spirit. Our hero, consciousness, looks at the whole of reality and finally understands that this vast gallery of images it's been traveling through has been its own story all along. And this, right here, is the final reward of the quest. It's not a chest full of treasure or a throne, it's a perfect reconciliation. Spirit finally knows the world as itself, and it knows itself through the world. The long, painful separation is finally over.
And in the end, Hegel leaves us with this stunning, poetic image, that chalice of this realm of spirits. That's the sum total of all human experience, all of our struggles, our art, our failures, and our achievements. And it's only by drinking from this chalice, by living through this entire historical journey, that the Absolute finally comes to know its own infinite nature. It's a truly breathtaking end to the hero's journey of us all.